So, welcome to Hunter's Quest podcast. I'm here today with my guest, Mike Shea. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, it's good to connect with you. So, Mike is a editor for Field and Stream as well as for Black Rifle Coffee. I guess you're the senior editor for Black Rifle Coffee, correct?
Yeah, yep. I'm full-time with Black Rifle Coffee. We're doing starting an outdoor brand, really, Free Range American. And so I'm the editor of that project. We have a website. We just started Instagram. So it's working out.
Yeah, and I was on there on the Free Range American site yesterday, and there's like just a ton of really cool, interesting kind of from all over the place, different articles, but all really interesting, cool stuff.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. We throw a pretty wide net, so we just did one today on Noveski is dropping on Halloween, the Space Baby 9mm pistol.
Oh yeah, I saw that on Instagram.
We're into SBRs as like a lot of hunters are, as we clearly are at Black Rifle Coffee. It's a rad pistol. And so like we did a story on that, and then we have history stories on mountain men. Like I've been writing a lot about elk hunting lately. Mm-hmm. So it's we like to think we throw a pretty wide net, cover what guys like us want to read.
For sure, man. And you mentioned elk hunting. You successfully filled your elk tag this year, huh?
I did. Yeah, I did. I shot a cow with some buddies in an OTC unit in Colorado. And man, it was like a long time coming. Like I've been basically elk hunting and doing and being a poor elk hunter and unsuccessful elk hunter for almost 10 years. And various things happened. I got kidney stones in the woods. I got in the mountain on my first trip, and my grandfather died. I had to turn around. And so I fell in with a group of people who poached some elk, which, I wasn't implicated in that, but like wardens were involved, and I had to tell people what I saw. And so literally it's like been 10 years of shows with elk. And this year I finally it like came through. Like a couple buddies from work and I were just like, let's make this happen. And and it worked out. It was awesome, man. First step. So
that's awesome. I was listening to the Lone Star Outdoor Show episode. If you guys want to go back and listen to it, episode 595 of the Lone Star Outdoor Show podcast. And Mike talks about that whole, you go into detail about the whole experience with the kidney stones and the poaching and everything. And so I listened to that, and I had a similar experience. So I had my appendix removed, and I had been drawn for a draw tag around here. There's a feral hog population in like a national park or a state park down the road. And it's a kind of a hard tag to draw. And I drew one, and I had my appendix removed like a week before. And I was just like, I gotta go anyway. So I went out there, and make a long story short, I burst my stitches while I was out hog hunting and didn't realize it. And I was sitting there for like a week just bleeding internally, and like a week or 10 days later, like I was sitting there like I couldn't like barely breathe or like move. My wife is like, I'm taking you to the hospital right now. And like we went, I had like 1.5 liters of blood in my cavity, and one of my lung was collapsed. There was so much blood in me, and I was like in the hospital for like 2 or 3 weeks after that. I had to have another surgery, like almost died. And you had a similar experience where you like were like blacking out, packing out of your elk spot, right?
Yeah. So I started getting this pain. I went in like 3 or 4 days before the season. And I made like a classic rookie mistake because I felt like I needed to go further and higher than everybody. So I was like 9.5 miles in, like camped out at about 11,000 feet, like right on the timberline. And the night before the season, like I went in, I was acclimated, like I felt good. And I got this pain in my side, and it was unbelievable. Like I joke, like I broke bones that hurt less, and I have. Like I rolled and snapped the ankle, and it did not hurt nearly as bad as this pain in my side. And I didn't know this at the time, but like for people who don't know about kidney stones, I honestly thought it hurt like when you went to the bathroom,
Right.
like when the stone, like you pissed it out,
Yeah.
like that was pain, and that does hurt. But the real pain,
Yeah.
the thing they don't tell you is when it's moving from your kidney to your bladder. You have this little bit of plumbing that connects it, and you have like on the imaging, it almost looks like a morning star. It's like this spiky little rock that's going through this tube, and it literally felt like I was getting knifed in the side. So I could do, if I did like downward dog, I don't know if you do know yoga, you do downward dog like like a Muslim praise, like that made the pain go away. But anything other than that, I was miserable. And so long story short, sorry, I thought I froze for a second.
That's
there.
Okay.
But yeah, so long story short, like I got to this rock and started just throwing up as the sun was coming up. Like I thought the cows were going to walk in through here, and I thought there was a bull with them. So I had this set up like on this rock, and just started throwing up out, 30 something times. I counted it, dry heaves. Oof. And I found out later that when you're in like that kind of extreme pain, like that's natural. Like you'll just start vomiting. People with head injuries do it too. So anyway, I got to this lake and there was a doctor there, like crazy luck. There was this fishing who happened to be a doctor, and he did some tests on me, and he basically said my appendix burst.
Oh,
so
which is deadly.
I hiked out. Yeah. I had to hike all the way out by myself. I was blacking out Wake Trail, like I opened the SOS button on my Garmin. I was like, do I hit it? Do I not? I didn't hit it because I thought I could make it. It was awful, man. It was
dude.
Awful. But it was cool because like flash forward to this season, and like I was up there on the glassing knob with my buddy Hearn and Curtis, and like I showed him the rock. I was like, that crazy story, like that's the rock. Like you could see it right there. Walked over and I took a picture on it 6 years later.
Yeah.
And I killed an elk.
Nice, man.
So like it was cool. It was cool to come full circle. But
for sure, man.
Anyway, kidney stones, appendix, like it's not anything I would wish on anybody.
Yeah. I had gallbladder stones too, and yeah, that is some of the most intense pain I've ever experienced in my life, for sure. And random side note, but you mentioned also that the first time you went out, you got an in-reach message that your grandfather had passed away, and you were really close with him, and he was a World War II vet. And I heard you just in passing mention, I think he was in the Navy. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
What boat was he on? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. He was on the USS Alaska.
Okay.
So it was a battle cruiser.
Okay.
They only made 2 of them. They had 3 lined up, but it was basically like larger than a cruiser and smaller than a battleship.
Okay. Just because I had a great uncle that was basically like a grandfather, and he was on the USS Essex, and I just thought that'd be crazy if they were somewhere related to each other. But anyway, man, that's super cool. And yeah, I got a chance to go on my first elk hunt. I was not hunting this year, but I was with Dan Staten from Elk Shape, and I was filming for him and doing video stills. And elk hunting, especially archery, is tough, man. It's legit.
Yeah. How'd you guys do?
So we, his whole thing is kind of like the blue collar, public land kind of gig. So we went in with landowner tags, but they were like the least expensive landowner tag you can get in New Mexico. They're like $1,500. And so we were probably on one of the most challenging, if not the most challenging units in New Mexico. Right outside of Albuquerque. He said on his podcast, so I'll just say it was Unit 9. Used to be a really premier unit, but they overhunted it, and now it's just highly pressured and low density. So we hunted super hard for 9 days, and we ended up getting on a bull the last the last evening, like an hour before sundown. And he did get a shot. We got it on camera, but as soon as he released the arrow, it was a pretty long shot, and as soon as he released the arrow, like we watched it in slow mo, just the timing was just terrible. The bull took 2 steps like while the arrow was flying, and it hit it right in front of the rear ham. And we tracked that thing for like a mile and a half till it got dark, and we went back the next day and looked for so long that I literally missed my flight home. Tracked it for probably 2.5 miles or something, and just never recovered him, man. So
Yeah.
it was a really good experience. Tough ending, but yeah, that's bow hunting, I guess.
Yeah, man, they're tough animals. You know, like if you don't get it in that 10 ring, you're not finding them.
Yeah,
I hit one poor, and through the back straps. This was several years ago, and it was a great experience. Like I got in on them real close. It was actually right after that kidney stone.
Okay.
And I think what happened, I left my good rangefinder in the truck when I got back from the hospital. And I had a backup because I didn't know. I thought I needed 2 of everything. So couldn't find my rangefinder when I left the truck, but I had another rangefinder that I had zipped in my tent.
Yeah.
And I zapped the hole at 30 and another hole at 50, and he came around to 50. And I sent it, and the left right was perfect, but it was way high. Right through the back strap. Found the arrow. Like, I'm sure that elk died of old age. He was fine. But then after the fact, I realized that backup rangefinder didn't do angle compensation.
Yeah.
So that hole that was like a true 50, it should have been 30. And I should have known that. I'm not like blaming the gear. I should have thought all that through. But, you know, it happens. You don't get heart and lungs, and you're not getting an elk.
Yeah, man. Well, they are tough critters, but congrats on the elk this year. I did want to ask, so I saw also, just as we're talking about kind of like current stuff, and I'm not sure if you can talk about it or not, but I saw some cool stuff on your Instagram about a project you've been working on with Terry. How do you say his last name? Is it Huyen or Howen? I don't even know.
Huyen. Terry. Yeah.
So
I was running them more or less.
Yeah. So can you talk any about that, or just tell us what's going on with that, or is that kind of top secret still?
No, we can definitely talk about that. Terry is kind of a legend. He's spent 19 years in Dev Group.
Nice.
He spent like 20 plus years as a SEAL. And then just before 9/11, got into Green Team and got on Team 6 and did a variety of roles through there over his career. And I met him through Black Rifle Coffee. You know, we kind of, as a company, run around with guys like that. Met him at a TAC in San Antonio, and we just kind of hit it off. I had no idea like about his career, and we started talking about elk hunting and deer hunting, and we shot the course together. And then over the course of that couple of days in San Antonio, like all these like Terry, for backstory, he's like 5.5 feet tall. Like I'm not that tall, and he's like much shorter than me.
Yeah.
He's Jack, but Jack like kind of like a soccer dad who you see at Home Depot is Jack, you know, no tattoos, no arm sleeves, no earrings. Like he doesn't look like the way a SEAL looks, more, but the stereotypical SEAL, not to lump them all together. So anyway, I just hit it off with him like I would be with you. And then over the course of the event, all of a sudden these guys who look like SEALs, who were like young and vascular and jacked and tattooed, would walk over and be like, "Sir, it's a pleasure to meet you, sir," and shake his hand and walk away. Finally, I was like, what do you do? You know? And he told me some of the highlights of his career. I mean, it's pretty rad. Like he was on the Jessica Lynch raid. He organized the Captain Phillips rescue. He was one of the guys on a rifle that dumped 3 pirates at the end. Just a legend and a great guy. And so we also have Coffee or Die within the kind of the Black Rifle Coffee sort of media franchise or empire, or whatever you want to call it. And so Coffee or Die now has a print magazine, and we put together this quarterly, and we were talking about ideas, and I just said, I want to like do like the be all tell all on Terry and like his career, because he's just a really rad guy, like super unassuming, like very humble. So anyway, this will be a magazine story that's going to come out in January, the Coffee or Die print magazine. But we kind of road tripped all through Texas. We spent about a week and a half going all through Texas. And I kept telling him, I was like, man, you should write a book. Like, let's write a book. Like, you'll be a millionaire. And he's just like total silent professional. He's like, nah, man, I'm not doing that.
Most of those guys are like that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what'd you guys hunt?
It was rad.
What'd you guys hunt in Texas?
We did a whitetail.
Sorry, this must be a lag.
Yeah, I think so. I live in the middle of nowhere and my internet sucks, so that might be what we're running into.
No worries.
So in Texas, we hunted whitetail for a couple of days. We had a camp, and several of the guys had never hunted before. So nobody connected there. And then we went to San Antonio to the Black Rifle Coffee Ranch, and we just did kind of a fun like target shoot with a couple of the guys. And then we went to West Texas and we hunted aoudad and javelina.
Nice.
And that was fun. Terry, I'm going to get into it in the magazine, but Terry's working with a ranch out there, and they're trying to put together almost like a shooting hunting school for active duty teams as well as veterans and people who want to show up. So they're putting together this kind of ranch program, I guess is probably the best way to do it. And so we kind of demoed it. And it worked out like really well. Like everybody shot audads, everybody killed javelinas.
Nice, man.
It was rad, man.
That's cool. Is the aoudad hunt, is that a pretty fun hunt? I've never done that.
Yeah, it's an awesome hunt. So the rams are like very are like hard to find. Not hard to find. Like you can get on them and get within rifle shot, but to find like a really great ram, you're looking at a lot of animals. We were doing a cull hunt, so we were shooting ewes, and they're everywhere, and it's very possible to get within 300 yards of it. So like if you're not picky, and there's just way too many of them. Like it's out. We probably saw 1,000 aoudad in 4 days. So if you're going into it as like a cull hunt, a meat hunt, a get guys experience on killing animals hunt, it's fantastic. If you're going for like a 32-inch or 34-inch ram, then it's a different story altogether, because you are looking at a lot of animals covering a lot of ground.
For sure.
So it's fun. I mean, I'd hunt aoudad again in a heartbeat. And one of our guys, Brady Tatanka on Instagram, him and I were running around, and he actually ended up killing a ewe with his bow, which was awesome, because all those cowboys like just laughed at us. We were like, yeah, we're gonna bow hunt these. They were like, whatever, bro. Nobody can get within 100 yards of these things. And Brady got within 40 and stuck one. So it was rad, man. It was a great week.
That's all. Do they eat pretty good?
Yeah, they do. Yep. Yeah, which surprised me, because that's another thing people say is like you can't eat aoudad, but we pulled some of the back straps and like it was fantastic. Like, I mean, it tasted like a deer back strap to me.
Yeah, I'm pretty much convinced at this point, like any backstrap from any animal probably tastes pretty good if you can cook it right and take care of the meat right.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's cool, man. Well, I would like to kind of go back a little bit and just hear a little bit of kind of your story and how you got started into the writing gig and like what kind of drew you to journalism and just a little bit of your backstory, if you don't mind taking me through some of that.
Yeah, man. No problem. So I guess like going way back, like writing was the only thing I was ever kind of good at, or like at least like better than my peers. So like I when I was in college, I worked for, I got a job at, or not a job, but I worked for the student newspaper. Um, and I did well on that. I won some awards, and then I got out of college, didn't know what I wanted to do, and started working for newspapers. And it was it was kind of the same story for a lot of years. Like I would get hooked on a big project and write a package on a big project. Usually would do pretty good, and then I'd move on to a bigger newspaper or a bigger opportunity. Then I went to grad school in New York City. The bottom kind of fell out of the newspaper business around like 2010-ish, 2008, 2010. So I decided to bail out for grad school, and I started duck hunting at that point and was just eating up with it. I didn't grow up hunting.
Okay.
And it was in grad school that a buddy came to our workshop and was like, Outdoor Life is looking for an intern. You know, maybe you should apply for it. And so I applied and I got it. And Outdoor Life and Field and Stream were owned by the same parent company that happened to be in like Lower Manhattan. So that kind of started this long relationship for them. I don't really work with them much anymore, but for a while there, I was editor at large at Field and Stream, and I was a staff video editor for a little while. I edited like special sections for a little while. So I guess I've always kind of wrote, and then I got so hooked and obsessed on the hunting thing. That's all I wanted to write. And then it got into the Field and Stream Outdoor Life kind of edit side, if you will. Did that for a while. I was only a staffer there for about 2 years, way back in the day, doing video work. And then I freelanced for them for a long time.
Okay.
And it really worked out well because I could pick and choose my trips. I could freelance for like corporate clients, so I could still pay the bills. And I really just kind of did the freelance writer thing for a long time. And like it worked well for us. Like even being in New York City, we were able to save enough money to buy a place. So we moved here to where we are now in upstate New York. I was telling you before we started, I was on a deer lease about 40 minutes from here. And that's kind of how we found this area. And we came down the driveway, and it's 40 acres. There's 3 buildings on it. Like our nearest neighbor is like a half mile away. I shoot rifles in my yard.
Nice.
And it was just like, holy, like we can afford this, you know?
Yeah.
And it sort of blew us away. And so we made this big move out here to the middle of nowhere, in rural New York. And it's been great. You know, I have this office here where I can test guns, I can shoot bows. I mean, I have a 100-yard bow target in my yard.
That's awesome.
You know? And so it just made I've been able, luckily through freelancing and now with what I'm doing at Black Rifle Coffee, sort of make like my hunting shooting interest my kind of professional world. And like this spot in the middle of nowhere, even though I got laggy internet, like it's given me like this lab to kind of do all of this stuff and kind of chase the outdoor content that I like so much.
Yeah, that's perfect, man. So semi selfish question, but what kind of because I know there's a lot of opportunity right now for writing and content creation, you know, especially with like seems like every company now, you know, wants articles and blog posts and whatever for their website to, you know, increase their search engine optimization and whatnot. But what kind of like advice, I guess, would you give for guys getting started out that want to kind of break in and get their foot in the door into writing some articles and stuff like that in the outdoor space?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I get that a lot. And I think the big thing you have to do is like you have to write. Like you have to get that stuff down. So like whether you're sending it to somebody and it's getting published or you're just doing it for yourself, like you have to kind of use those muscles. Also, like I think a lot of people think of writing as like an art, or like something that's like inspired. So like the spirit moves you and then you write about this great elk hunt or whatever. And I sort of resist that notion because it's very much like a craft. Like there are rules to how sentences and paragraphs and sections hang together. And you have to, I think, the best writers take an interest in that, almost like the mechanics of it. Like I kind of beat up this analogy where it's sort of like whatever you think or feel or aspire to have a water pump do, it doesn't fucking matter. Like the water pump needs to sit in the engine a certain way so the engine runs.
Yeah.
And like how a story works, it's that concrete. Like does the work hang together in a way that communicates the idea so the story works, so the story runs. You know, there's a lot of like books on grammar that you can get into. You know, there's a plugin that we use a lot of called Grammarly.
I've heard of that.
It plugs right into a Word doc. I hook all our writers up with it because that's just like one of those foundational things that it's got to be right. Like, so a guy could have the best story in the world, but if they send it to me and it's like a mess on a sentence level, like it doesn't matter that you kill the bighorn.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because nobody has the bandwidth to rewrite a whole feature story.
For sure.
Know? And the other thing too, and I know we talked about this, and another point is like a lot of people who get into this, and I think this is sort of a result of social media, but a lot of people like want to tell stories about themselves.
Yeah.
So it's like, I did this, I did that, I. Well, people generally speaking want to read about themselves or not someone else.
Right.
And this is sort of in contrast, I think, to a lot of the social media space, because like we all are on Instagram. We all know that if I post a landscape photo, not as many people are going to like it as if I post a selfie of myself with a bow in the landscape. So there's almost like this mixed message of like people coming from the social media space think I need to sort of present myself as the hero of every story. But when it comes down to like website content or magazine content or book content, that's not really needed. You know, you have to approach it, or I try to approach a lot of it as like service journalism. Like you're helping people do something they want to do. So like one of our fitness writers, awesome dude, Todd Bumgardner, did a DIY Alaska caribou hunt on the Dalton Highway and hung it all together. And I was talking to him. And so the story that came out of that trip for us wasn't so much like his epic hunt, and it was an epic hunt. Like it's a worthy story, but it's literally like a logistics report of like how to do this hunt. Cause like I'm a hunter, I have the means and resources to travel, but like, how do I even get my head around like hunting an ice road? And he's like, well, here's exactly how you do it, with dates and regs linked out and everything you need to know about it. That you're providing a service to a reader. Someone's Googling Dalton Road caribou and they're going to find this document and you're going to kind of help them accomplish their mission. Yeah. So it's kind of a mind shift from the way a lot of social media works, I think. But it's not a hard one to make. Like a lot of people will kind of ground that corner pretty quickly, and then you know they're in that they can find themselves in that sweet spot where you get to write about what you love to do.
For sure. It's kind of like that. I don't know. Have you heard or read that book, Story Brand by Donald Miller?
No.
Okay.
No,
well,
the
whole premise is like, most people, like exactly like you just said, they want to make themselves the hero of the story. But what really connects is when you make your customer or your reader or your listener the hero of the story, and you're their guide. Like every story has like a protagonist, hero, and a guide, like, Luke Skywalker and Yoda. You want to be Yoda helping Luke Skywalker make his journey, not like you're Luke Skywalker talking about your journey.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I think that's bang on. I think when we were talking on other channels, like very similar, when I first got started at Field and Stream, one of the editors there told me, he said, like, imagine a magazine cover and there's like a Viper on the front, like this hot car, and there's a guy sitting behind the wheel. You look at that photo of this slick car and this guy in it and you think, that guy has a nice car. But if you take the driver out and it's just the car, someone looks at that cover and they think, that could be my car.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a lot of story you need to do. You need to put the person in the headspace of thinking like, I can do this. This could be me. And it's a twist from kind of like the Instagram culture, I think, that a lot of us kind of operate in now. There, different rules apply.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So you do video work too, is that correct?
Yeah, I do. Yep.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, I didn't know. For a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, what, because you were trained as, classically trained as a journalist, and kind of moved into the outdoor space. But I'm always kind of curious, what was your initial draw to journalism, just on a person level?
Yeah. So this is funny. This is gonna sound super nerdy, but I have asthma, and I have had it my whole life. And I think it was 98. Like, I didn't want to go to college, and I was a perfectly fine student, but I didn't want to go to college. And my buddy joined the Army, and so I went and I talked to their recruiter, and they were like, sorry, Roach, hit the road. You have asthma, So I got to go to college. And so I went to college, and like I said, I won high school awards for writing and like that. I always, it just has always worked for me. And then 9/11 happened, and I went to my college newspaper. I was, I think, a sophomore or a junior in college. And there was like this, we were meeting in like this cafeteria room, all these college editors and newspapers. And I was like there, and I was all nervous, and they were like, well, what do you want to write about? And I was like, I want to write about terrorism. And they basically like burst out laughing. They were like, bro, this is a college newspaper. Like, we're not, unless there's something, gunman on the square, like, I don't think you're going to get to do that.
Yeah.
But I was just so like out of touch, and, I was just a dumb kid. And, and so I started doing for them. I did a couple environmental beat stories for them. And, I like the idea of like, I wanted to tell like those big stories. I felt like back in the day when that was happening, like it was a way I could kind of do my part.
Yeah.
I covered the military for a couple small newspapers, and it just like, I guess like the lifestyle and like my personality, like it just kind of fit.
Yeah.
Like I'm like an obsessive human. Like I just like everyone in my life accepts that about me now, and I do too. And so like if I get into something, like it's 100 miles an hour.
I'm the same.
I don't halfway anything. And this profession has enabled me to go 100 miles an hour about whatever it is I want, and then I can produce a product on the other end of it. So maybe that's a magazine story or a web story, or like the book I just wrote on rimfires. I got eaten up with precision shooting for like 3 years of my life, and because I know how to write, and I have good editors and good people in my life, like I was able to take that obsession and then package it into, like in that case, a book product, or in some of the hunting cases, like a video product or whatnot. So it's, I guess I'm lucky in that, like I started like my inspiration, like it's kind of corny. Like I feel like a dork when I tell that original story of like why I wanted to write. But I guess like subconsciously I was picking a career path or a way of living that really kind of matched like who I am.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful, I'm grateful in hindsight.
No, that's really good. And dude, I'm the same way. Like I get obsessed with something and I just go all in. My wife, it drives her crazy, but I think you're right. I mean, you see a lot of these big time authors and like movie producers and stuff, and they'll go on like a 2-year bender, like entering into some world, and then they'll come out of it and be an expert on it and be able to share that with the world. That's very well said, and I like how you're able to take that personality trait that, if not harnessed properly, can be a negative thing, but if it is harnessed properly, it can be really used for something cool. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
And my story is similar. So my background is like, all in photojournalism, but I've always been drawn to cameras and stuff like that, and the outdoors, obviously, and wildlife. And then I just love travel and exploring and discovery and all this stuff. So I was able to find this job where I was a full-time videographer traveling around, and then became a producer eventually. But yeah, it's a lifestyle for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the guys who are like the best at it, like they kind of understand that, like they're capitalizing on some kind of quirk of personality.
Totally. Yeah, no, I love that. So on that note, Black Rifle is a coffee company, and a lot of people, to be honest, even myself at first, now I get it, but would be like, okay, why does a coffee company have like this huge media arm, and like, oh, it's like, so like, why? Like, what's just like, walk us through that, and like, and I think it's important, but I just kind of want to hear from your perspective, like why that's something that's been such a big part of Black Rifle.
Yeah, I think it would be easy to kind of have a business that's successful and like only stay in that lane and just, only be a coffee company, or only be a military company or a veteran inspired company. But like the guys who started it, like Evan, Matt, they're very savvy, and they kind of recognize that they have this huge audience, and they can show that audience sort of almost like another way of living. They can basically put out there the best of as we think of it, like real American values, like freedom, Second Amendment, and like access to wildlife and wild places, and really kind of celebrate the American dream, if you will. Because like a lot of these guys, like they fought for that, and so like we think of Coffee or Die as like news and entertainment for guys kind of on deployment, guys in active duty who are kind of doing their thing. Cool. Free Range American, you can almost think of as a venue for people who are back home, back on the home front. So Now what? What is that new purpose after service that you can kind of sign up for? Internally at the company, like a lot of our guys have found like a renewed meaning and renewed sense of purpose, and almost like a meditative approach in archery. So we do a lot of archery inspired events and whatnot, which all go towards like helping this community of veterans and people who are pro-veteran and people who are pro-Second Amendment, and just sort of like elevating the stature or the profile of these people and these events. So like we sponsor like Total Archery Challenge.
That's the first time
great fit for us.
That's the first time I met.
Sorry, go.
No, I was gonna say that was the first time I kind of ran into Black Rifle was at TAC, and I met a bunch of guys out there. And anyway, so drank like 1,000 espresso mochas and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So you probably shot poorly because you're too over caffeinated. But a lot of people will say, they don't. I've had people and they don't almost get that initially because they don't really know us, and they think coffee and they think military, but we're sponsoring this archery event. But when you get inside the company, and as I know, as like you've seen it now, like archery and hunting and the outdoors is so much a part of like the DNA of the company. Like it makes perfect sense that we are sponsoring Attack. And I think Free Range American is a natural expression of that, and like doing all of the outdoor media that we do is kind of a natural expression of the company. Like when Evan and Logan are not, involved in the day-to-day running of a company, like much of their free time is spent thinking about hunting and shooting.
Yep.
So why not take that energy and professionalize it and put it out there and try to bring all of the positive benefits of the outdoors to guys' lives,
For sure.
It's funny, like I was in Texas with Terry, and like Terry was a DevGru sniper for most of his career. And we were talking about it, and he said the vast majority of Navy SEALs have never gone hunting.
Yeah.
He said some of them, where they got started, never, like before buds, like had almost zero firearms familiarity.
Wow.
So like there's this, why not? Those guys have done their thing for the country. Like we're lucky to have them. They get out the other side of service. Like, why not open these doors to them and get them into recreational shooting and archery and hunting?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I've said it before, and I'm in no way trying to compare hunting to combat. I know they're not the same at all, not even in the same arena. But when you think about like a backcountry rifle hunt or even archery hunt, it's for a guy who's not in the military. It's almost pretty much like as close to like a military operation as you can get to without actually being in a war.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't have that experience because I'm not a veteran, but like on this elk hunt, my buddy Mike Hearn, who I went with, like he's active duty. Like he's full time in the Army right now. And my buddy Curtis was a Army Ranger. And so the three of us were up there on the mountain, and we're making our food over fire. And Hearn was like, I love this so much because it feels like deployment. Like all that matters is where I'm sleeping, what I'm eating, and weapons maintenance. Yeah. And I got to get the mission accomplished. And the mission just happened to be an elk,
right?
And like those are, I can see how guys who kind of became adults in that mindset or can get out and think, what's next? Well, an elk hunt or a mule deer hunt or a whitetail hunt may bring back some of those, some of that mindset.
Yeah, totally.
At least the guys I know really well say it does. Like, obviously I can't personally speak for them, but I can see how they're related.
Yeah, for sure, man. And just going back to Black Rifle, I love what you guys do. And so I live right next to Virginia Beach, Virginia. So there's a lot of Navy SEALs based here. I got several friends at my gym that are Navy Special Warfare. My hunting partner is ex-Navy Special Warfare. I've had a couple other buddies on the podcast who are ex-SEALs and stuff. And so I'm definitely interested in helping those guys out. And I love that stuff. And another thing I saw, like, so Baker sent me a big care package with a bunch of coffee and stuff in there. And like one of the packages I just noticed, it said on the back, like, coffee for people who love America. And I was just like, that's so great because, a lot of these big name coffee companies that are just easy to kind of like fall into buying their products are very anti 2A, very against a lot of the values that we hold dear. And like, I don't want to support those companies. Like, I'd rather support a company that's doing good stuff for veterans in the outdoors and stuff, So.
Yeah, man. I mean, and that gets back to that question you asked me, like, why do we do all this media? Why do we have all of these media? And like, honestly, like we want to, a lot of us want to tell like the good news of like, if you turned on any of the cable news right now, you'd think, the whole country's in the toilet,
right.
Bad news, montage, but, that's not the whole story, man. This is it's a beautiful place where we live. It's a beautiful country, and there's tons of these opportunities. So let's tell the stories about like adaptive athletes or elk hunts or physical fitness or like good food. And there's a lot to celebrate, and I think that's kind of what we're trying to do.
For sure,
trying to get that message out there.
Yeah, I think y'all are doing a good job. So I do want to, switching gears a little bit, hit on your book, which I've been reading a little bit. Very, very well put together book, very thorough, really cool book for you guys that are listening and can't see. It's called Rimfire Revolution. I mean, it's just anything you want to know about modern rimfire, firearms, the history, shooting, cleaning, maintenance, hunting. It's all in here, so check it out. But I mean, just to start off, just high level question. I mean, why did you write this book?
Oh man, I think it goes into like that obsessive thing that we were talking about. There's a couple lines came together, but the big one for me is I got a buddy down in Kentucky, Will Brantley, and he was always after me to go squirrel hunting with him. And finally one year we did a video package. I actually videoed a package for on X on squirrel camp. And the way Will and his buddies do it is they basically sneak through the woods in August and September and take anywhere from like 20 to 100 yard headshots on squirrels with 22s. And man, is it fun. It's hard to explain it. I guess I tried in the book, but really it's almost like still hunting deer.
Yeah.
But you get really quiet. You build a position. Like we came to use tripods and set up on a tripod, and you'll hear the squirrels kind of chipping away, cutting on say a hickory nut or a pig nut. And you'll get set up and you'll listen and you'll hear them running. And then eventually through the leaves, like your eyes will pick up like that tail going. You'll see them and, you guess, it's about 60 yards, and then it'll come out, and eventually you'll see them and you're in full camo, like up to your eyes, almost like you're turkey hunting. And then you just got to kind of make the shot. And so he's bouncing through the trees, you get him to settle down, and then finally you can get that reticle set up, and then it's one shot, boom. And, it's like sniping squirrels. And I interviewed a guy for a story who is disabled. It was actually the first one. Before that hunt, I wrote about Ricky King.
Yeah, I remember reading about him.
Yeah. He hunts with a 17 Mach 2, which is a neck down 22 to long rifle to 17. And he put a big 20 power loophole on it. And when I asked him like why he had that much optic on a rimfire, he said, I like to count their eyelashes, and like that to me just summed it up. And so I did this hunt with Will. I wrote this story about Ricky, and I was like, man, this stuff is neat. So I went on a gun broker and I bought an old Anschutz 17 Mach 2 German rifle. And I set it up at 25 yards to sight it in, and I shot. And it was way low. The left-right was good. And so I turned it up, boom, hit, bullseye. It was like, awesome, and put another one in, boom. There's no shot on paper. And I was like, shot again. And I'm like, rings are loose, So I'm like banging on the scope, like thinking I'm missing the paper. And so I walked up and pulled the paper. And then I realized like that was one hole in the bullseye.
Yeah.
At 5 yards.
Jeez.
And like you could literally take the rim from that rim cartridge and like put it through the paper and like hold the rimfire case in the paper. And I was just like I've shot guns and shot bows and do all of this stuff, but like that level of accuracy and like precision.
Yeah.
So I'm like where I'm sitting now, I'm on this outbuilding on my property, and out the window up here is our wood pile. We cut wood and burn wood for all that. And there's a chipmunk up there. It was 77 yards. And I had this rifle, and I kind of knew about what it did because I was shooting it at 50 and shooting it at 100. And I see this chipmunk on the top of our wood pile, 77 yards of chipmunk. It's like the size of this Yeti cup. And offhand, I got comfortable and cut that joker in half. And I was just like, so all of these moments happened, and I was like, this is so cool. Like, why is nobody talking about how like highly accurate these little bullets are.
Yeah.
And then I started getting into the target world of NRL 22, and those guys were certainly talking about it. I got talking with guys like Mike Bush at Voodoo, who builds these custom rifles, who are even, I mean, they're even sicker than the German stuff. And yeah, I just sort of again, getting back to that obsessive personality. I spent like 2 or 3 years down this hole. I started running an NRL 22 match.
Okay.
I was a match director of one here. And I loved it. And the whole time that I'm getting eaten up with this world, I'm like doing research. And at the time I was doing a lot of work for Field and Stream. And so I would call like Savage or Volkortson, and I'd be like, hey, I'm Mike Shea from Field and Stream. And the gun companies, like, they would answer my calls. They would set aside time and answer all my questions because of the publicity that I could inherently bring if I wrote something. And I wrote a bunch of stuff for FS back in those old days, but I had all of these interviews. And then I was spending all my free time in the internet forums, like researching all the little nuances of like, does it make sense to weigh your ammo, or should I weigh it, or should I measure contricity, or, you know, all of the super nerd stuff I was doing. And so it was like before Rona, I guess. So it was like the January before the Rona kind of took over everyone's life. I was writing for Gun Digest, and I was at SHOT Show, and I went to my editor and I was like, hey man, I want to take all this Rimfire stuff and put it in a book.
Nice.
And he introduced me to the publisher, Jim, over there at Gun Digest, and I talked to him, and I sent him an email, and he was just like, hell yeah, man, this is going to be a good one.
Cool.
And yeah. And so I spent most of last year writing it, and then it just came out in, I guess this summer in July, finally came out. Yeah.
There's a line in here that stuck out to me. You're saying, well, first of all, you said, when you're talking about that chipmunk, you said reaching out and touching tiny targets with the miniature bullets felt like something like a religious experience. And then you said, that year squirrel hunting ruined my deer hunting, duck hunting, and almost my marriage when the wife clued into what I was spending on rifles and hard to find, expensive 17 Mach 2 ammo.
Yeah.
And definitely, I know that feeling with the wife when you get like for me, it's been, you know, buying all this lightweight backcountry gear and stuff like that. And this is like having stuff shipped to my office, not to my house, so she doesn't know everything, you know. So it's I feel your pain there.
Yeah, man. I had a real moment like that. None of that is fabricated. I got hooked on Gunbroker, and it got bad because I'd be like, oh, $500, oh, $700, you know, like this isn't so bad. And then I'd get caught up in it. And I remember one night, like I was on my phone in bed, and I just like, she heard me groan, and she was like, what is it? And I was like, I swear I'm going to delete this Gunbroker account. And she was just like, it was like, you know, a degenerate gambler or something.
It's an addiction.
So deflated that you went and bought another gun.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, guns are hard to hide though. So I haven't been able to get away with secretly buying guns yet, but I'll figure out how to do that one day.
Yeah. Office safe.
Yeah. Also, you mentioned, or one of the pictures in the book, you guys are up by Kentucky Lake. And so my whole family originally is from Paducah, Kentucky, which is right there by Kentucky. Where are you guys at when you go to Kentucky?
My buddy lives in Murray.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we kind of hunt and fish out around there.
And you'd actually do a squirrel camp, huh?
Yep. The first year we did it, we camped right on the shores of Lake Kentucky, or Kentucky Lake.
Yeah.
And then the last several years, he actually built a cabin kind of out there, not like on the water, but pretty close to it.
Nice.
So conditions have definitely upgraded.
Yeah. So where, if like, other than starting off by reading your book, of course, if somebody wants to get into you know, here's us, maybe wants to get into trying to get into the small game world and the precision 22 or rimfires, you know, what's a good place to start there?
Yeah. Right now, like it's an odd time because of the ammo shortage, you know? So like there are definitely tons of guns you could get into right now that are going to be like, every major manufacturer has a rifle that came out in the last 3 or 4 years that's heads and shoulders above what was done even 5 years ago. Um, so I think if you want to, like, if you really wanted to get into this, whether small game hunting or NRL 22, I think you got to kind of figure out the ammo thing first.
Yeah.
And figure out like where you can get it, what you can get, and then kind of go from there and work sort of backwards into the gun. I think the book, like what I tried to do with the book is sort of make like a one-stop shop. So it gets into all the ammo. There's a chapter on every rifle manufacturer and what's out there. And so I do think like that could help you, because like if your guy wants a small game rifle or an NRL 22 open class rifle, like those are two different things. It's like a pickup truck versus an Indy car.
Yeah.
You know? So I think the book can help you with that. And then there's a lot of good information online. Like there's a bunch of Facebook groups that I'm in, like the Rimfire Tactical group, the Precision 22 group, lots of information in there. Sniper's Hide, the Rimfire forum on Sniper's Hide is very good. Rimfire Central is another forum that's very good.
Okay.
But again, like that's kind of like you're going to go down a rabbit hole if you go there.
Yeah.
That was kind of the idea of the book, was sort of like give people enough so they can make that decision to get into this, or they can just say, yeah, this is for me. And then from there, jump down all the rabbit holes.
Yeah. Okay. So kind of last question here. We talked about both of us have this obsessive personality, which, is cool. It's a blessing and a curse. But one of the kind of bad things about it, at least in my life, not saying for you, but, I tend to kind of jump around sometimes to a lot of things, and it seems a little manic to my wife, I think. And I get that, but like, in terms of like, there's a few things that have been constant in my whole life, and one has been faith and one has been outdoors hunting. And so, I feel like for you in your career, you've kind of settled into this outdoor hunting space, and it could be that there's different rabbit holes within that you might go down and obsess over for a time or whatever, but it always comes back to outdoors and hunting. And for me, I think that's because there's a spiritual connection to the outdoors and to hunting. And so I'm just curious about, what your stance is on that. If you feel like there's a connection there, what that looks like for you, or why you feel like you've sort of settled into the outdoor space.
Yeah. That's a good question. I think that's a hard question, like, I don't have any answers as to like what is like the big sort of cosmic kind of next step, but yeah. I know like when I'm in the mountains or on a hunt or like committed in a whitetail stand, like I get like these moments of like transcendence, freedom. Like I feel like everything is right sized in the universe. And there's a lot of things in my life, like where if I let it slip, all of a sudden, like negative thinking, negative attitudes, the sort of I don't want to say it's like darkness, because it's not as bad as I think it can be for a lot of people, but like I just sort of feel off the beam.
Sure.
Right. But when I'm engaged in outdoor activities, when I'm exercising, when I'm eating good food, mm-hmm. when I'm not like abusing substances, like all, and it's sort of like that clean living in the outdoors. That's like when I feel like my best, that's like what I need. That's the gas in the tank to write a book, to come up with a video idea, to like get into the sort of beautiful stuff of this life. So I don't know why it plugs me in that way. Like I know people who like are out of shape and don't hunt and play video games and eat drink whiskey and like you're fat. And they are happy as can be, and like more power to you, like no judgment, but like right. The way I'm wired, like I need to be engaged in this stuff to feel like myself. And yeah, I'm grateful I found it. I'm grateful I found it. Like I'm not a miserable person. Like I think so many people can be.
Well said, man. Well said. Yeah, I'm with you there. Well, that's awesome, man. I think we covered most of the stuff I wanted to talk to you about, but I appreciate your time. And definitely, where can people find you if they want to check out your book or any other stuff? Where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, so anywhere books are sold, so Amazon, Barnes and Noble, like it's widely distributed. You can find me on IG at Michael R. Shea, and then Free Range American, of course, free.range.american, pretty much anywhere, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can check out some of the stories we're doing. I'm particularly happy with Free Range American because it's such an odd collection. We just did a post on like Mel Gibson and the new John Wick and what that means, and then we're writing about SBRs and we're writing about elk hunting. So I think for guys like us, guys who I imagine are listening to your podcast, I think we're kind of right in that wheelhouse. So
yeah, it's a really good mix of cool stuff on there. Definitely can waste some time on that website.
Awesome.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, thanks again, man, for your time. I appreciate it. And hopefully I'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.